look? Like you're him. Good. That's the whole point.
In the meantime, what shall we do with the other one?
Don't worry about him. The two of us will have a talk soon enough. For now, the show must go on.
Wonka is the newest Roald Dahl adaptation and the prequel to the 1971 classic Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, directed by Paul King and stars Timothée Chalamet, Calla Lane, and Hugh Grant. It follows the origin stories of a young magician and chocolate maker and how he became the beloved Willy Wonka that we know today.
Now I'm gonna be real honest. I haven't seen the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Please, calm down. Guys, I said quiet! Thank you. Despite that, I went into this movie with high expectations because this is supposedly the prequel to Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka. Not the totally wacky and weird portrayal of Johnny Depp, who looks like he's more than eager to touch you in the wrong places. But all that being said, Wonka felt like a prolonged embrace mixed with a hint of sweetness in the air. And trust me, there is a lot of sweetness in this movie, in which the experience would go handsomely with a bar of chocolate to go along with your popcorn.
The villains in this movie are called the Chocolate Cartel, and be the name as it is, man, I thought that even though their names sound like they're from a child's fever dream, they still prove that they could be as ruthless as ever, especially considering that Wonka is basically the end-all be-all of their entire enterprise. Speaking of which, Timothée Chalamet as a younger Willy Wonka was an absolute breath of fresh air. And honestly, it's quite challenging to pin him against two other portrayals of the character who are charming in their own way. Well, at least one of them. He was able to bring some level of not only the eccentricity and confidence that we all come to know and love about the character, but he also excelled at the character's down moments, the scenes wherein we are expected to sort of take a breather and process the hardships that he's had to go through in order to get to where he is at now. And I'm not gonna lie, some of those moments definitely hit closer to home. I'm not ashamed to admit that I almost felt my chest tighten a little, and the urge to cry was close. Not only that, but it's another testament that goes to show how versatile Chalamet is as both an actor and as a performer, which leads me to my next point. The songs in this movie were undoubtedly what made the theme of holding on to your dreams an absolute highlight for me. You could tell that everyone was having a blast making this, and another highlight of this movie for me was the relationship between Wonka and this girl named Noodle, played by Calla Lane. Their chemistry immediately clicked for me the moment these two shared a frame together on screen, and Lane really did a good job in conveying the emotions of a child whose dreams are clearly short-lived, with a childhood that she never really got to experience herself in the first place. And I think with the existence of one Willy Wonka in her life, over time, we begin to get the sense that she's not defined by her past, and there's always an instance wherein she could always bounce back from it.
Hugh Grant plays an Oompa Loompa in this movie, and he wasn't really in the movie that much, as the trailers make it out to be, but he still did a pretty good job regardless. While Wonka does prove that even with the acknowledgement that this is either a soft reboot or a prequel to the Gene Wilder classic, it still did a pretty good job standing on its own two feet. The only flaw that I really had with the movie in the long run were there were some characters that I feel like should have been fleshed out more. Specifically the side characters starring alongside Calla Lane. They work as scrubbers with little to no pay whatsoever. Honestly, if you blindfolded me while watching the movie, I'd still point out that Wonka and Noodle were still one of the most memorable characters of the bunch. And that's a real shame considering that everyone in the cast did a really good job. Overall, Wonka was a real treat to an origin story like no other, coupled with performances that were as delectable as a bar of chocolate. And cut, that's a wrap. Are we done here? Can I go now?
The final joke?
What?
You gotta end it with a joke.
A joke.
Yeah, it always ends with a joke.
You know what else is a joke? Your entire family being under surveillance if you keep questioning the way I run this shit.
I'm sorry, sir.
We're done here.